Please don't do this to me. I'm the same age as your daughter. This story is unfortunately completely true and is told from the perspective of a girl who actually experienced these events. Therefore, this story is not only useful for learning English, but also beneficial for raising your awareness. Every day after school, a woman would come and greet me warmly. She always complimented me, saying how beautiful I was and that I should value myself. I never understood why she kept repeating that. A month passed, and she continued saying the same things. Then, she started buying gifts for me: shoes, dresses, pretty things, and so on. I really began to like her and trust her. Sometimes she would even drive me home. This continued for another month. After that month, she invited me to her house after school and introduced me to her daughter. We went to her house, and when I entered, I saw several girls around my age. I greeted each of them, but their looks felt quite strange. I ignored it, sat on the couch, and she brought me a cup of tea, which I drank. When I regained my senses, I realized I was lying on the couch and they were standing over me, staring at me. I still felt a bit dizzy and couldn't remember what had happened from the moment I drank the tea. I had no memory of anything. I told them I needed to go home, and she drove me back. That night, as I was about to sleep, I noticed I had received a message. Several pictures had been sent. I opened them and saw several photos of me without clothes, taken while I was unconscious. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I immediately called the number that had sent me those photos. They told me not to say anything to anyone and to come to the same house the next morning. When I went there, I asked her how much she wanted. She told me she didn't want money, she wanted me. She explained that all the girls I had seen there worked for her, and from now on, I would have to work for her like they did. Otherwise, she would post all the photos she had of me online. I asked her what I had to do. She replied, "What do you think you should do?" I realized what she meant. I told her I wasn't going to do it. She said that at first, these girls said the same things, but later they came to their senses. She gave me one night to think about it. I had to either comply with her demands or she would publish the photos of me on the internet. I spent the whole night crying until morning, not knowing what to do. I couldn't let her publish my photos, so I agreed. I thought maybe if I begged the man who was supposed to come to me, he might not go through with it. The next morning, when I went to her and we were about to enter the room, she said, "Look, don't say a single word in there. You go into the room like a good girl, do the customer's job, and then come out." Understood? I was so shocked that I couldn't speak. I nodded and said yes. As soon as we entered the room, I broke down in tears. I fell to his feet and begged, "Please don't do this to me. I'm the same age as your daughter. Imagine if your daughter were here right now." She forced me to come here. He said, "I don't care at all. What matters is that you're here now. I paid for you and you have to do your job." I begged, "I'll give you as much money as you want. I'll do anything you ask, just don't make me do this." But he didn't pay the slightest attention to me. After that day, I was no longer the same person. I felt humiliated, empty, and worthless. This incident happened over and over again, and each time I cried through the night until morning. The people who came to us were all wealthy, and many of them had wives and children. Some of them had mental issues. They would come into the room and wouldn't do anything. They would just cry and ask us to listen to their stories. One night, I asked the other girls who were there and working like me, "You knew what she was going to do to me. Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let her drag me and take those photos of me?" But their minds were already messed up. They said, "We've come to terms with it, you will too." I realized talking to them was pointless. So I went to her and, crying, said, "Why did you do this to me? Was money really worth it? Don't you have a family? Don't you have a daughter? I was only 18 when you dragged me into this filthy work." She said, I did this work myself for 20 years, and now is my retirement time. I haven't heard from my daughter in years. One day, we found out that one of the girls was pregnant. She got really angry with her and took her into a room, yelling at her a lot. The next day, we didn't see that girl anymore, and to this day, I have no idea what happened to her. She was capable of anything. After a while, I became very afraid of that woman. I never went back to that house. I moved to another city and threw away my SIM card. After a few months, when I returned, I saw that no photos of me had been published anymore, and that house had been empty for a long time. I hope that this never happens to anyone. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next story.